Pirates of the Caribbean is an American fantasy supernatural swashbuckler film series produced by Jerry Bruckheimer and based on Walt Disney's theme park attraction of the same name. The film series serves as a major component of the titular media franchise. The film's plots are set primarily in the Caribbean, based on a fictionalized version of the Golden Age of piracy, c. 1650 to 1726, while also leading to the range of a mid-1700s setting. Directors of the series include Gore Verbinski, films 1 to 3, Rob Marshall, 4, Joachim Ronning, 5, and Espen Sandberg, 5. The series is primarily written by Ted Elliott, 1 to 4, and Terry Rossio, 1 to 5. Other writers include Stuart Beattie, 1, Jay Wolpert, 1, and Jeff Nathanson, 5. The stories follow the adventures of Captain Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp, with various other characters, including Jack's former first mate Hector Barbossa, Geoffrey Rush, and first mate Josh Amy Gibbs, Kevin McNally, over the course of the films. The film series started in 2003 with Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, which had a positive reception from audiences and film critics. It grossed $654 million worldwide. One after the first film's success, Walt Disney Pictures announced that a film series was in the works. The franchise's second film, subtitled Dead Man's Chest, was released in 2006 and broke financial records worldwide the day of its premiere. Dead Man's Chest became the top-grossing movie of 2006 with almost $1.1 billion at the worldwide box office. The third film in the series, subtitled At World's End, followed in 2007 earning $960 million. Disney released a fourth film, subtitled On Stranger Tides, in 2011 in conventional 2D, digital 3D, and IMAX 3D. On Stranger Tides succeeded in also grossing more than $1 billion, becoming the second film in the franchise and only the eighth film in history to do this, at the time of release. A fifth film, subtitled Dead Men Tell No Tales, was released in 2017 earning $796 million. The franchise has grossed over $4.5 billion worldwide. It is the 17th highest grossing film series of all time, and is the first film franchise to produce two or more films that grossed over $1 billion. Films: Johnny Depp at a film premiere, Rush at a festival, McNally at a festival, Bloom at a festival, Knightley at a festival, Martin Club at the premiere of Pirates of the Caribbean 3. Johnny Depp, Geoffrey Rush, Kevin McNally, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, and Martin Club appeared in at least 4 films. Only Depp, Rush, and McNally reprised their roles in all 5 films. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, 2003. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Blacksmith Will Turner teams up with eccentric pirate Captain Jack Sparrow to save Turner's love, Elizabeth Swann, from cursed pirates led by Jack's mutinous former first mate, Hector Barbossa. Jack wants revenge against Barbossa, who left him stranded on an island before stealing his ship, the Black Pearl, along with 882 pieces of cursed Aztec gold. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, 2006. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Lord Cutler Beckett of the East India Trading Company arrests Will and Elizabeth for aiding Captain Jack Sparrow in the previous film. Beckett offers clemency if Will agrees to search for Jack's compass in a bid to find the dead man's chest and inside, the heart of villainous Davy Jones, which would give Beckett control of the seas. However, Jack wants the chest to escape from an unpaid debt with Jones, who made Jack captain of the Black Pearl for 13 years in exchange for 100 years of service aboard Jones' ship, the Flying Dutchman. Jack's debt is complicated by both Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, who follow him out to sea. Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End, 2007. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End. Lord Beckett gains power over Davy Jones and, with the help of the Flying Dutchman, he is now executing his plans to extinguish piracy forever. To stand against the East India Trading Co., Will, Elizabeth, Barbossa, and the crew of the Black Pearl set out to rescue Captain Jack Sparrow from Davy Jones' locker. As one of the 9 pirate lords, Jack is needed in order to release an ancient goddess with the power to defeat Beckett's forces. Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides, 2011. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, on Stranger Tides. Captain Jack Sparrow is on a quest to find the fabled fountain of youth and crosses paths with a former lover, Angelica. She forces Jack aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge, a ship captained by the infamous pirate Blackbeard, Angelica's father. Both are also in search of the fountain, Angelica to save her father's soul, Blackbeard to escape a prophecy of his demise at the hands of a one-legged man. Joining the hunt is former pirate Captain Barbossa, now a privateer in King George II's navy, who is in a race against the Spanish for the Fountain of Youth. The film is based on the 1987 novel On Stranger Tides by Tim Powers. 2. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, 2017. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. A group of ghostly Spanish Navy soldiers led by Jack Sparrow's old nemesis, Captain Armando Salazar, escape from the Devil's Triangle, with the goal of killing every pirate at sea, including Sparrow. To survive, Sparrow seeks out the legendary Trident of Poseidon, a powerful artifact whose owner can control the seas and break curses. 3. The film was released in many countries as Pirates of the Caribbean, Salazar's Revenge. 4. Film US release date director, S. Screenwriter, S. Story by producer. The Curse of the Black Pearl July 9, 2003 Gore Verbinski Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio Ted Elliott, J. Wolpert, Terry Rossio and Stuart Beatty Jerry Bruckheimer. Dead Man's Chest July 7, 2006 Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. At World's End May 25, 2007. On Stranger Tides May 20, 2011 Rob Marshall. Dead Men Tell No Tales May 26, 2017 Espen Sandberg and Joaquin Ronning Jeff Nathanson Terry Rossio and Jeff Nathanson. Future. Untitled 6th film, TBA. Shortly before the release of On Stranger Tides, it was reported that Disney was planning to shoot the 5th and the 6th films back-to-back 5, although ultimately only the 5th installment was developed. By March 2017, director Joaquin Ronning stated that Dead Men Tell No Tales was only the beginning of the final adventure, confirming that it would not be the last film of the series. 6. That September, producer Jerry Bruckheimer indicated that another Pirates of the Caribbean was still in development. 7. In October of the same year, Kaya Scodelario stated that she was contractually signed to return for a 6th film. 8. Ronning was reportedly set to direct the film. 9. In 2018, a 6th film was still in the works at Disney. 10. That same year, Keira Knightley said she did not see herself returning for another installment because she is a mother now and that the films take too long to shoot. 11. In October 2019, Disney announced that Craig Mazin and Ted Elliott would write Pirates of the Caribbean 6. 12. 13. In May 2020, Bruckheimer commented that the first draft of the screenplay for the 6th film would soon be finished. 14. On April 20, 2022, during his defamation trial against ex-wife Amber Heard, Depp stated he had no intention of returning to the franchise, citing his strained relationship with Disney after they had removed him from the franchise before a verdict was reached in the case. 15-16. In February 2023, Orlando Bloom had expressed interest in returning to the franchise. 17-18-19. In March, Keira Knightley explained to Entertainment Tonight why she would not make a return to the Disney franchise. "What about Elizabeth Swann?" Knightley joked when asked if she would rejoin the crew, also commenting that her character sailed away in brilliant style. 20. Bruckheimer was also still interested in potentially bringing back Depp to the saga. 21-22. In June, Depp was reportedly open to returning to the series if the project proves worthwhile. 23. In August 2023, Craig Mazin stated that he had pitched a Pirates script to Disney, but that he would only commit to it if he was able to work with Ted Elliott. Mazin confirmed that his and Elliott's script was bought by Disney, also commenting that it was too weird, but the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike had slowed development of the sixth installment. 24. In March 2024, Bruckheimer stated that the sixth film would be a reboot. 25. Despite this, 2 months later, Bruckheimer hoped to see Depp return. 26. On May 20, 2024, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, Bruckheimer provided further clarification on the series' status. Bruckheimer confirmed that, in addition to Elliott now writing National Treasure 3, there were 2 different Pirates movies in development. The first is a reboot that he intends to produce with script writer Jeff Nathanson, and the second is the Margot Robbie film that will be penned by Christina Hodson. He stated that he hoped both films would be made, and noted that he thought Disney was receptive to the Robbie-led film. In regards to the reboot, he confirmed that it would not follow characters from the previous films, but stated that he hoped Depp would make an appearance. 27. On December 4, 2024, a Variety article mentioned that Bruckheimer was developing 2 separate scripts, one of which featured Depp. 28. In June 2025, Bruckheimer said the sixth film would feature returning cast members and new faces. When asked if he would return for another film, Bloom said, "I think they're trying to work out what it would all look like. I personally think it'd be great to get the band back together. That would be great, but there are always different ideas, and so we'll see where it lands." 29. In August of that year, when asked if Depp would return for the sixth film, Bruckheimer said, "If he likes the way the part's written, I think he would do it. It's all about what's on the page, as we all know." 30. Spin-off films. In October 2018, it was reported that Disney had been looking for ways to make a sixth film in the franchise, bringing on Deadpool, 2016, writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, though producer Jerry Bruckheimer was expected to return. 31. However, in February 2019, Reese and Wernick departed the project and the project was cancelled. 32. A female-led spin-off was announced in June 2020, starring Margot Robbie with Christina Hodson writing the screenplay. The film is separate from the sixth film also being developed. Bruckheimer was attached as producer. 33. In November 2022, Robbie said the project was not going forward. 34-35. Bruckheimer then shared the following month that the project wasn't officially dead and that a sequel merely took priority. 36. He then later reiterated that it will still be made and has a very strong story but also needs a little more work. 37. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Jerry Bruckheimer stated that another spin-off with a younger cast is in the works alongside the Margot Robbie spin-off. 38. In February 2024, it was rumored that Disney was considering Ayo Edebiri to follow in Depp's footsteps for the leading role, a character named and likely inspired by the real-life pirate Anne Bonny, in a tentatively titled Pirates 6, a female-fronted movie that centers on a younger cast of pirates searching for hidden treasure. 39. In response to the debunked rumors that Ayo Edebiri would replace Johnny Depp as the new lead, Daniel Richtman commented, "It's not true, there's no replacing Depp or anything like that. She's only the type they're looking at for the lead in one of the planned spin-offs, not the Margot Robbie one." 40. However, none of that has been officially confirmed by Disney. 41. Short film. Pirates of the Caribbean, Tales of the Code, Wedlocked, 2011. Pirates of the Caribbean, Tales of the Code, Wedlocked is a live-action short directed by James Ward Burkett. 42. There were many proposed titles, including Wedding Bells 43 and Pirate Bells. 44 Although it was only included as a special feature in the US 15-disc 3D Blu-ray/2D Blu-ray/DVD plus digital copy box set that includes the first 4 films released on October 18, 2011. 45 It was also released in the similar UK 5-disc set. Jim Burkett conceived the idea for a short film while on the Shipwreck Cove set Rick Heinrichs designed for Pirates of the Caribbean, at World's End, 2007, a project which interested Brigham Taylor at Disney. Screenwriters Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio collaborated with Burkett on the script, having envisioned something based on the Pirate Code book as a device that could tie into other stories later. The short film was shot by cinematographer Nick Sadler. As the Pirate Cove sets from At World's End where the short film takes place were set to be demolished, the short project was prepped in a matter of days and shot over 3 days in late 2006. 43-46 In 2023, Rossio wrote on Wordplay that Tales of the Code was designed to be a series of a few fun shorts to fill in the Pirates universe and add to the DVD extras section. He also said that, in addition to Wedlocked, there are a few scripts around that were a part of that process. 44. The short film Wedlocked serves as a prequel to Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, inspired by the auction scene in the Disneyland attraction. 2 wenches believe they are both betrothed to Jack Sparrow, but he has secretly traded them to the auctioneer for a fancy hat. They think the auctioneer is raising money for them, when in actuality they are being sold as brides to the highest bidder. Wedlocked had several Pirates veterans reprise their roles, like Vanessa Branch as Giselle, Lauren Marr as Scarlet, and David Bailey reprising his role as Cotton. The 10-minute short also featured John Vickery as the auctioneer and Dale Dickey as Una the Wench, as well as 3 pirates Marquis Davis, Atencio, and Slurry Gibson who are named after Mark Davis, Xavier Atencio, and Blaine Gibson, the Imagineers who worked on the original attraction. 45. Cast and Crew. Cast. Main articles, List of Pirates of the Caribbean characters and List of Pirates of the Caribbean film actors. Additional crew. Occupation Films. The Curse of the Black Pearl Dead Man's Chest at World's End on Stranger Tides Dead Men Tell No Tales. Composer Klaus Badelt Hans Zimmer Jeff Zanelli. Editor, S. Craig Wood, Arthur Schmidt and Stephen Rivkin Craig Wood and Stephen Rivkin Wyatt Smith and David Brenner Roger Barton and Lee Folsom Boyd. Cinematographer Darius Wolski Paul Cameron. Production companies Walt Disney Pictures and Jerry Bruckheimer Films. Distributor Buena Vista Pictures. Distribution Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. Production. Development. First film. Back in the early 1990s, Michael Frost Beckner and James Gorman pitched the script that would become Cutthroat Island to Michael Eisner as a potential Pirates of the Caribbean film, buoyed by support from development staff at Disney. Eisner turned it down, due to not wanting to mix the company's film and theme park divisions. 47 Almost a decade later, Walt Disney Pictures had Jay Wolpert write a script based on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride in 2001, which was based on a story created by Disney executives Brigham Taylor, Michael Haynes, and Josh Harmon. Stuart Beattie stated that he talked about making a pirate movie based on the ride while tossing a frisbee with a friend, and wrote a first draft titled Quest for the Caribbean while on exchange to Oregon State University in 1991. 48 49 50. Screenwriters Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio notably thought about the pirate genre based on the ride during the early 1990s, having pitched the idea after completing work on the 1992 film Aladdin as a premise to studio executives 51, but there was no interest from any studio. Undeterred, the writing team refused to give up the dream, waiting for a studio to pick up their take on a pirate tale. 52 Producer Jerry Bruckheimer rejected Wolpert's script, feeling it was a straight pirate movie. 53 In March 2002, Disney brought Beattie in to rewrite the script, due to his knowledge of piracy. 54 Later that month Elliott and Rossio were brought in, having worked with Disney in Aladdin and the 2002 film Treasure Planet, among other successful films. 53 Elliott and Rossio, inspired by the opening narration of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, decided to give the film a supernatural edge. 55. In June 2002, Gore Verbinski signed on to direct Pirates of the Caribbean, and Johnny Depp and Geoffrey Rush signed on the following month to star. 54. Verbinski was attracted to the idea of using modern technology to resurrect a genre, one that had disappeared after the golden age of Hollywood, and recalled his childhood memories of the ride, feeling the film was an opportunity to pay tribute to the scary and funny tone of it. Depp was attracted to the story as he found it quirky. Rather than trying to find treasure, the crew of the Black Pearl were trying to return it in order to lift their curse, with the traditional mutiny having already taken place. Depp based Captain Jack Sparrow on a combination of the Rolling Stones guitarist Keith Richards and Looney Tunes cartoons, specifically the characters Bugs Bunny and Pepe Le Pew. Verbinski approached Rush for the role of Captain Barbossa, whom Depp named Hector behind the scenes, as he knew he would not play it with attempts at complexity, but with a simple villainy that would suit the story's tone. 56. Orlando Bloom read the script after Rush, with whom he was working on Ned Kelly, suggested it to him, and was cast as Will Turner. 57. Keira Knightley came as a surprise to Verbinski. He had not seen her performance in Bend It Like Beckham and was impressed by her audition for Elizabeth Swann. 56. Tom Wilkinson was one of several actors negotiated with to play Governor Swan. 54. But the role went to Jonathan Pryce, whom Depp idolized. 56. Further additions include Jack Davenport as James Norrington, Kevin R. McNally as Josh Amy Gibbs, Zoe Saldana as Anna Maria, Lee Arenberg and Mackenzie Crook as Pintle and Rajady, David Bailey as Cotton, Martin Kleba as Marty, Giles New and Angus Barnett as Murdoch and Mulroy, Damien O'Hare as Lieutenant Gillette. 52. And Greg Ellis as then unnamed Theodore Groves. 58. While Dick Cook had been a strong proponent of adapting Disney's rides into films, the box office failure of The Country Bears, 2002, made Michael Eisner and Robert Iger attempt to shut down production of Pirates of the Caribbean. Although Bruckheimer was Disney's most reliable and successful producer, Eisner second-guessed the early footage, complaining about Depp's character, and as the budget rose, threatened to cancel the film. However, Verbinski told his concept artists to keep working, and Bruckheimer changed the executives' minds when he showed them concept art and animatics. 59. As recalled in the book Disney War, Eisner asked, "Why does it have to cost so much?" Bruckheimer replied, "Your competition is spending $150 million, referring to franchises like The Lord of the Rings and The Matrix." Eisner concurred, but with the stigma attached to theme park adaptations, Eisner requested that Verbinski and Bruckheimer remove some of the more overt references to the ride in the script, such as a scene where Sparrow and Turner enter the cave via a waterfall. Another change made was adding The Curse of the Black Pearl as a subtitle, should the film be a hit and lend itself to sequels like Raiders of the Lost Ark, which brought protest due to the Black Pearl being the name of the ship and nothing to do with the pirate's curse. Although Verbinski thought the subtitle was nonsense, Eisner refused to back down, and The Curse of the Black Pearl remained the subtitle, though on most posters and trailers the words were so small as to be barely visible. 60-61. Shooting for The Curse of the Black Pearl began on October 9, 2002, and wrapped by March 7, 2003. 54. Before its release, many executives and journalists had expected the film to flop, as the pirate genre had not been successful for years. The film was based on a theme park ride, and Depp rarely made a big film. 62. However, The Curse of the Black Pearl became both a critical and commercial success. Second and third films. After seeing how well the first film was made, the cast and crew signed for 2 sequels to be shot back-to-back. 63. A practical decision on Disney's part to allow more time with the same cast and crew. 60-64. Writers Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio knew that with an ensemble cast, they weren't free to invent totally different situations and characters, as with the Indiana Jones and James Bond series, and so had to retroactively turn The Curse of the Black Pearl into the first of a trilogy. 65 They wanted to explore the reality of what would happen after Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann's embrace at the end of the first film, and initially considered the Fountain of Youth as the plot device. 66 They settled on introducing the Flying Dutchman, the Kraken, and Davy Jones's Locker, a mythology mentioned twice in the first film. Also only mentioned in the first film, a fictionalized East India Trading Company was introduced as the primary antagonists, which for them represented a counterpoint to the personal freedom represented by Pirates 67, which was represented by a fictionalized Brethren of the Coast. 68 Each of the cast of characters reprised their roles in the Pirates sequels, respectively, and saw the additions of Tom Hollander as Lord Cutler Beckett, Stellan Skarsgård as Bootstrap Bill Turner, Naomi Harris as Tia Dalma, and Bill Nighy as Davy Jones. Further additions include Chow Yun-fat as Sao Feng and Keith Richards as Jack Sparrow's father, Captain Teague. 68. In November 2006, near the end of filming the Pirates trilogy, it was reported that Keira Knightley didn't want to participate in any further sequels. 69 Both Knightley and Orlando Bloom had repeatedly been quoted in saying they were done with Pirates, noting that there was closure for Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann in At World's End, was quoted in saying they wanted to move on from the franchise. 70, 71, 72, 73 Whereas Johnny Depp was more interested in returning as Captain Jack Sparrow. 74 Having been quoted that it was a break, or a hiatus, as he wrapped his last day on set. 68. Filming for the sequels began on February 28, 2005. 75 with Dead Man's Chest finishing on March 1, 2006. 76 and At World's End on January 10, 2007. 77-78 The second film was the first Disney theatrical feature film with the computer-generated Walt Disney Pictures logo. 79. Fourth film. With the stories of both Will Turner, Orlando Bloom, and Elizabeth Swann, Keira Knightley, resolved in At World's End. 74 As well as both actors having declined involvement. 70, 71, 72 This forced a new approach while retaining some of the franchise favorites, particularly Pirates veterans Captain Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp, Captain Hector Barbossa, Geoffrey Rush, and Josh Amy Gibbs, Kevin R. McNally, from the original trilogy. Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio discovered the novel On Stranger Tides by Tim Powers during production of Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, and decided to use it as the basis for a fourth film. 74 As Gore Verbinski was unavailable, Bruckheimer and Depp invited Rob Marshall to direct the film. 80 Elliott and Rossio decided to do a standalone sequel. 81 with a story that would support new characters. 82 and incorporate elements from the novel, such as Edward Blackbeard Teach, The Fountain of Youth and Mermaids, the latter two having been already alluded to in the previous films. 83-74. Depp, Rush, McNally, Keith Richards, Greg Ellis, and Damien O'Hare returned to their roles from previous films in Pirates of the Caribbean, On Stranger Tides. 84 and the cast saw the additions of Ian McShane as Blackbeard and Penélope Cruz as Angelica, Jack Sparrow's love interest and Blackbeard's daughter. 85 further additions include Sam Claflin as the missionary Philip Swift, Astrid Burgess Frisbee as the mermaid Serena, Stephen Graham as Scrum, Richard Griffiths as King George II, and Oscar Janetta as the Spaniard. 74 After the costly production of two simultaneous films, Disney tried to scale down the fourth installment, giving a lower budget. 86 which led to cheaper locations and fewer scenes with special effects. 87 However, with a budget of $378.5 million, On Stranger Tides is one of the most expensive films ever made. 88-89. Filming for On Stranger Tides began on June 14, 74, and ended on November 19, 2010. 87-90 Non-primary source needed. It was also filmed in 3D, with cameras similar to the ones used in Avatar. 80-74 It was released in the United States on May 20, 2011. 91. Fifth film. In January 2011, Terry Rossio was confirmed to write the screenplay for the fifth installment, but without his co-writer Ted Elliott. 92 Rossio's script was ultimately discarded, and the writer stated that a major reason was its use of a female villain, which made actor Johnny Depp worried that would be redundant to Dark Shadows, which also featured a female villain. 93. Following the film's theatrical release in 2017, Rossio released his unproduced screenplay on his website Wordplay, which includes the proposed story and additional information in extensive footnotes. 94. In January 2013, Disney hired Jeff Nathanson to write the script for the film. Nathanson's script featured the Trident of Poseidon III, loosely based on the Trident of Neptune from Rossio's script. 94 Norwegian directors Joachim Ronning and Espen Sandberg were reportedly selected to direct in May 2013. 95 By August 2013, Ronning and Sandberg confirmed their involvement, and praised Nathanson's funny and touching script, also being inspired by the first film of the franchise. 96-97 The directing duo also confirmed that the title of the fifth film would be Dead Men Tell No Tales, alluding to the line well known from the theme park attraction 98-99-100, and that it would be both a standalone adventure and tie into the overall mythology of the series. 101 Disney pushed back the originally announced 2015 release date to a summer 2016 release. 102-103 script issues were reportedly behind the delay, as both the studio and filmmakers were reportedly not happy with Nathanson's initial draft, but Bruckheimer revealed Nathanson was at work on a second attempt based on the well-received outline. 104. Depp, Rush, McNally, Stephen Graham, Martin Kleba, Giles New, and Angus Barnett returned to their roles from previous films, and the cast saw the additions of Javier Bardem as the Spanish Navy captain Armando Salazar, Brenton Thwaites as Henry Turner, and Kaya Scodelario as Karina Smith. Further additions include Golshifteh Farahani as the Sea Witch Chinsa 105, David Wenham as Royal Navy Lieutenant John Scarfield 106-107, and a cameo role by the Beatles musician Paul McCartney as Jack Sparrow's namesake, Uncle Jack. 108 Despite the studio and producer guideline that Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom would not return, 94 as well as the actors' initial comments about returning to their roles after At World's End 70-73, Elizabeth Swann and Will Turner returned in cameo appearances in Dead Men Tell No Tales. 109. The film was shot in Australia after the government agreed to repurpose $20 million of tax incentives originally intended for the remake of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. 110 Village Roadshow Studios and Port Douglas were used as filming locations. 111 Production began in Australia on February 17, 2015, and wrapped on July 9. 105-112 Although the scheduled theatrical release was on July 7, 2017, 113-114-115 among other previously announced and subsequently delayed release dates. 102-103 Dead Men Tell No Tales was released on May 26, 2017. 116 The film was also given an alternative title, Salazar's Revenge, for marketing purposes in selected European, South American, and Asian countries. 117. Reception. Box office performance. Film US release date, box office gross, all-time ranking, budget, ref. North America, other territories worldwide. North America worldwide. The Curse of the Black Pearl, July 9, 2003, $305,413,918, $348,850,097, $654,264,015, 99, $161, $140 million, 118. Dead Man's Chest, July 7, 2006, $423,315,812, $642,863,913, $1,063,179,725, $3341, $225 million, 119. At World's End, May 25, 2007 $309,420,425 $651,576,067 $960,996,492 97 $60 $300 million $120. On Stranger Tides May 20th, 2011 $241,071,802 $804,642,000 $1,045,713,802 $157 44 $378.5 million $8889. Dead Men Tell No Tales May 26th, 2017 $172,558,876 $622,322,566 $794,881,442 $319 $103 $232 $320 million $121 $122. Total $1,451,780,833 $3,070,254,643 $4,522,035,498 15 $1.274 to $1.364 billion $123. The Pirates of the Caribbean film series was successful at the box office, with each film grossing over $650 million, and all but Dead Men Tell No Tales at some point ranking among the 50 highest grossing films of all time. It became the first ever series to have multiple films passing the $1 billion mark in box office revenues, with Dead Man's Chest and On Stranger Tides 124 since, followed by other film franchises. The Curse of the Black Pearl was the third highest grossing 2003 film in North America, behind The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King and Finding Nemo, and fourth worldwide, behind The Return of the King, Finding Nemo, and The Matrix Reloaded. 125 Dead Man's Chest was the most successful film of 2006 worldwide. 126 at World's End led the worldwide grosses in 2007, though being only fourth in North America, behind Spider-Man 3, Shrek the Third and Transformers. 127. On Stranger Tides was the third highest grossing film of 2011 worldwide, behind Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 2 and Transformers, Dark of the Moon, and the fifth in North America. 128. The first three sequels broke box office records upon release, of which the most notable are the opening weekend record in North America, Dead Man's Chest, 129, the Memorial Day weekend record in North America, at World's End, 130, and the opening weekend record outside North America, On Stranger Tides. 131. Critical and public response. Each film is linked to the critical response section of its article. Film Rotten Tomatoes Metacritic CinemaScore 132. The Curse of the Black Pearl 79%, 7.11/10 average rating, 219 reviews, 133.63, 40 reviews, 134A. Dead Man's Chest 53%, 5.95/10 average rating, 228 reviews, 135.53, 37 reviews, 136A. At World's End 44%, 5.46/10 average rating, 227 reviews, 137.50, 36 reviews, 138A. On Stranger Tides 33%, 5.02/10 average rating, 276 reviews, 139.45, 39 reviews, 140B+. Dead Men Tell No Tales 30%, 4.70/10 average rating, 290 reviews, 141.39, 45 reviews, 142A. The series is noted for its high quality of acting talent. 143, 144, 145, 146, 147, 148. The visual and practical effects are considered some of the best ever done on film. 147, 148, 149, 150. So much so that audiences believed certain CGI elements of the films were real and done practically. 151, 152, 153. However, the plots of the 4 sequels have received mixed reviews, with the general consensus that they are too bloated and convoluted to follow. 154, 155, 156, 157, 158. Pirates of the Caribbean is noted for reinvigorating the pirate film genre after decades of either no pirate films or failed pirate films. 159. The success of the series saw Disney and Jerry Bruckheimer try to replicate the franchise's success by releasing other big-budget adventure films such as Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time and The Lone Ranger, the latter of which was directed by Gore Verbinski. Both of them have failed to achieve critical or financial success. 160, 161, 162, 163. Accolades. Main article, list of accolades received by the Pirates of the Caribbean film series. Fantasy films are films that belong to the fantasy genre with fantastic themes, usually magic, supernatural events, mythology, folklore, or exotic fantasy worlds. The genre is considered a form of speculative fiction alongside science fiction films and horror films, although the genres do overlap. 1. Fantasy films often have an element of magic, myth, wonder, escapism, and the extraordinary. 2. Subgenres. Several subcategories of fantasy films can be identified, although the delineations between these subgenres, much as in fantasy literature, are somewhat fluid. The most common fantasy subgenres depicted in movies are high fantasy and sword and sorcery. According to whom? Both categories typically employ quasi-medieval settings, wizards, magical creatures, and other elements commonly associated with fantasy stories. High fantasy films tend to feature a more richly developed fantasy world, and may also be more character-oriented or thematically complex. Often, they feature a hero of humble origins and a clear distinction between good and evil set against each other in an epic struggle. Many scholars cite J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings novel as the prototypical modern example of high fantasy in literature, and the recent Peter Jackson film adaptation of the books is a good example of the high fantasy subgenre on the silver screen. Sword and sorcery movies tend to be more plot-driven than high fantasy and focus heavily on action sequences, often pitting a physically powerful but unsophisticated warrior against an evil wizard or other supernaturally endowed enemy. Although sword and sorcery films sometimes describe an epic battle between good and evil similar to those found in many high fantasy movies, they may alternately present the hero as having more immediate motivations, such as the need to protect a vulnerable maiden or village, or even being driven by the desire for vengeance. The 1982 film adaptation of Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian, for example, is a personal, non-epic, story concerning the hero's quest for revenge and his efforts to thwart a single megalomaniac while saving a beautiful princess in the process. Some critics refer to such films by the term sword and sandal rather than sword and sorcery, although others would maintain that the sword and sandal label should be reserved only for the subset of fantasy films set in ancient history on the planet Earth, and still others would broaden the term to encompass films that have no fantastic elements whatsoever. To some, the term sword and sandal has pejorative connotations, designating a film with a low-quality script, bad acting, and poor production values. Another important subgenre of fantasy films that has become more popular in recent years is contemporary fantasy. Such films feature magical effects or supernatural occurrences happening in the real world of today. Films with live action and animation such as Disney's Mary Poppins, Pete's Dragon, Enchanted, and the Robert Zemeckis film Who Framed Roger Rabbit are also fantasy films, although are more often referred to as live action/animation hybrids. two of those are also classified as musicals. Fantasy films set in the afterlife, called Bangshian fantasy, are less common, although films such as the 1991 Albert Brooks comedy Defending Your Life would likely qualify. Other uncommon subgenres include historical fantasy and romantic fantasy, although 2003's Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl successfully incorporated elements of both. As noted above, superhero movies and fairy tale films might each be considered subgenres of fantasy films, although most would classify them as altogether separate movie genres. Fantasy movies and the film industry. As a cinematic genre, fantasy has traditionally not been regarded as highly as the related genre of science fiction film. Undoubtedly, the fact that until recently fantasy films often suffered from the sword and sandal afflictions of inferior production values, over-the-top acting, and decidedly poor special effects was a significant factor in fantasy films' low regard. Since the early 2000s, however, the genre has gained new respectability in a way, driven principally by the successful adaptations of Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings and J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series. Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy is notable due to its ambitious scale, serious tone, and thematic complexity. These pictures achieved phenomenal commercial and critical success, and the third installment of the trilogy became the first fantasy film ever to win the Academy Award for Best Picture. The Harry Potter series has been a tremendous financial success, has achieved critical acclaim for its design, thematic sophistication, and emotional depth, grittier realism and darkness, narrative complexity, and characterization, and boasts an enormous and loyal fan base. Following the success of these ventures, Hollywood studios have greenlighted additional big-budget productions in the genre. These have included adaptations of the first, second, and third books in C.S. Lewis' The Chronicles of Narnia and the teen novel Eragon, as well as adaptations of Susan Cooper's The Dark is Rising, Cornelia Funk's Inkheart, Philip Pullman's The Golden Compass, Holly Black's The Spiderwick Chronicles, Nickelodeon's TV show Avatar, The Last Airbender, and the Fantasia segment, along with Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's original poem, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Many fantasy movies starting in the 2000s, such as the Lord of the Rings films, the first and third Narnia adaptations, and the first, second, fourth, and seventh Harry Potter adaptations have most often been released in November and December. This is in contrast to sci-fi films, which are often released during the Northern Hemisphere summer, June, August. All three of the Pirates of the Caribbean films, however, were released in July 2003, July 2006, and May 2007 respectively, and the latest releases in the Harry Potter series were released in July 2007 and July 2009. The huge commercial success of these pictures may indicate a change in Hollywood's approach to big-budget fantasy film releases. Screenwriter and scholar Eric R. Williams identifies fantasy films as one of 11 supergenres in his screenwriter's taxonomy, claiming that all feature-length narrative films can be classified by these supergenres. The other 10 supergenres are action, crime, horror, romance, sci-fi, slice of life, sports, thriller, war, and western. 3. History. Fantasy films. By decade. Before 1930. 1930s. 1940s. 1950s. 1960s. 1970s. 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s. Vide. Fantasy films have a history almost as old as the medium itself. However, fantasy films were relatively few and far between until the 1980s, when high-tech filmmaking techniques and increased audience interest caused the genre to flourish. What follows are some notable fantasy films. For a more complete list, see List of fantasy films. 1900 to 1920s. See also List of fantasy films before 1930. In the era of silent film, the earliest fantasy films were those made by French film pioneer Georges Méliès from 1903. The most famous of these was 1902's A Trip to the Moon. In the golden age of silent film, 1918 to 1926, the most outstanding fantasy films were Douglas Fairbanks' The Thief of Baghdad, 1924, Fritz Lang's Die Nibelungen, 1924, and Destiny, 1921. Other notables in the genre were F.W. Murnau's romantic ghost story Phantom, Tarzan of the Apes starring Elmo Lincoln, and D.W. Griffith's The Sorrows of Satan. 1930s. See also, List of fantasy films of the 1930s. Following the advent of sound films, audiences of all ages were introduced from 1937's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to 1939's The Wizard of Oz. Also notable of the era, the iconic 1933 film King Kong borrows heavily from the Lost World subgenre of fantasy fiction, as does such films as the 1935 adaptation of H. Rider Haggard's novel She, about an African expedition that discovers an immortal queen known as Aisha, she who must be obeyed. Frank Capra's 1937 picture Lost Horizon transported audiences to the Himalayan fantasy kingdom of Shangri-La, where the residents magically never age. Other noteworthy fantasy films of the 30s include Tarzan the Ape Man in 1932 starring Johnny Weissmuller, starting a successful series of talking pictures based on the fantasy adventure novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and the G.W. Pabst directed The Mistress of Atlantis from 1932. 1932 saw the release of the Universal Studios monster movie The Mummy, which combined horror with a romantic fantasy twist. More light-hearted and comedic affairs from the decade include films like 1934's romantic drama film Death Takes a Holiday, where Frederick March plays Death, who takes a human body to experience life for 3 days, and 1937's Topper, where a man is haunted by two fun-loving ghosts who try to make his life a little more exciting. 1940s. See also, List of fantasy films of the 1940s. The 1940s then saw several full-color fantasy films produced by Alexander Korda, including The Thief of Baghdad, 1940, a film on PAR with The Wizard of Oz, and Jungle Book, 1942. In 1946, Jean Cocteau's classic adaptation of Beauty and the Beast won praise for its surreal elements and for transcending the boundaries of the fairy tale genre. Sinbad the Sailor, 1947, starring Douglas Fairbanks Jr., has the feel of a fantasy film, though it does not actually have any fantastic elements. Several other pictures featuring supernatural encounters and aspects of Bangshian fantasy were produced in the 1940s during World War II. These include Beyond Tomorrow, The Devil, and Daniel Webster, and Here Comes Mr. Jordan, all from 1941, Heaven Can Wait, the musical Cabin in the Sky, 1943, the comedy The Horn Blows at Midnight, and romances such as The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, 1947, One Touch of Venus and Portrait of Jenny, both 1948. An astonishing anticipation of the full sword and sorcery genre was made in 1941 in Italy by Alessandro Blasetti. La Corona di Ferro presents the struggles of two imaginary kingdoms around the legendary Iron Crown, historically the ancient crown of Italy, with war, cruelty, betrayal, heroism, sex, magic and mysticism, a whirl of events taken from every possible fairy tale and legend source Blasetti could find. This movie is unlike anything done before, indeed, considering that it was finished 15 years before the publication of Lord of the Rings. Its invention of a vast, national epic mythology is an act of genius. And while the storytelling is rough, due to the need to insert everything, and the resources limited, Blasetti shows how to make a little go a long way through beautifully staged and designed battle and crowd scenes. Although it's not classified as a fantasy film, Gene Kelly's Anchors Away had a fantasy sequence called The King Who Couldn't Dance, in which Gene did a song and dance number with Jerry Mouse from Tom and Jerry. Because these movies do not feature elements common to high fantasy or sword and sorcery pictures, some modern critics do not consider them to be examples of the fantasy genre. 1950s. See also, List of fantasy films of the 1950s. In the 1950s there were a few major fantasy films, including Darby O'Gill and the Little People and the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, the latter penned by Dr. Seuss. Jean Cocteau's Orphic trilogy, begun in 1930 and completed in 1959, is based on Greek mythology and could be classified either as fantasy or surrealist film, depending on how the boundaries between these genres are drawn. Russian fantasy director Alexander Tushko created 3 mythological epics from Russian fairy tales: Sadko, 1953, Ilya Muromets, 1956, and Sampo, 1959. Japanese director Kenji Mizoguchi's 1953 film Mugetsu Monogatari draws on Japanese classical ghost stories of love and betrayal. Other notable pictures from the 1950s that feature fantastic elements and are sometimes classified as fantasy are Harvey, 1950, featuring a puka of Celtic mythology, Scrooge, the 1951 adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, and Ingmar Bergman's 1957 masterpiece, The Seventh Seal. Disney's 1951 animated film Alice in Wonderland is also a fantasy classic. There were also a number of lower-budget fantasies produced in the 1950s, typically based on Greek or Arabian legend. The most notable of these may be 1958's The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, featuring special effects by Ray Harryhausen and music by Bernard Herrmann. 1960s. See also, List of fantasy films of the 1960s. Harryhausen worked on a series of fantasy films in the 1960s, most importantly Jason and the Argonauts, 1963. Many critics have identified this film as Harryhausen's masterwork for its stop-motion animated statues, skeletons, harpies, hydra, and other mythological creatures. Other Harryhausen fantasy and science fantasy collaborations from the decade include the 1961 adaptation of Jules Verne's Mysterious Island, the critically panned 1 Million Years BC starring Raquel Welch, and The Valley of Gwangi, 1969. Capitalizing on the success of the sword and sandal genre, several Italian B-movies based on classical myth were made, including the Massist series. Otherwise, the 1960s were almost entirely devoid of fantasy films. The fantasy picture Seven Faces of Drive Lao, in which Tony Randall portrayed several characters from Greek mythology, was released in 1964. But the 1967 adaptation of the Broadway musical Camelot removed most of the fantasy elements from T.H. White's classic The Once and Future King, on which the musical had been based. The 1960s also saw a new adaptation of Haggad's She in 1965 starring Ursula Andress as the immortal She Who Must Be Obeyed, and was followed by a sequel in 1968, The Vengeance of She, based loosely on the novel Aisha, The Return of She, both produced by Hammer Film Productions. The musical fantasy film Mary Poppins was released in 1964, and 1968 saw the release of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, based on a story by Ian Fleming with a script from Roald Dahl. 1970s. See also, List of fantasy films of the 1970s. Fantasy elements of Arthurian legend were again featured, albeit absurdly, in 1975's Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Harryhausen also returned to the silver screen in the 1970s with 2 additional Sinbad fantasies, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, 1974, and Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, 1977. The animated movie Wizards, 1977, had limited success at the box office but achieved status as a cult film. There was also the Noah, 1975, which was never released theatrically but became a cult favorite when it was finally released on DVD in 2006. Some would consider 1977's Oh God, starring George Burns, to be a fantasy film, and Heaven Can Wait, 1978, was a successful Bansheon fantasy remake of 1941's Here Comes Mr. Jordan, not 1943's Heaven Can Wait. A few low-budget Lost World pictures were made in the 1970s, such as 1975's The Land That Time Forgot. Otherwise, the fantasy genre was largely absent from mainstream movies in this decade, although 1971's Bedknobs and Broomsticks and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory were 2 fantasy pictures in the public eye, the former being predominantly from the same team who did Mary Poppins, the latter again being from Roald Dahl in both script and novel. 1980s. See also, List of fantasy films of the 1980s. 1980s fantasy films were initially characterized by directors finding a new spin on established mythologies. Ray Harryhausen brought the monsters of Greek legends to life in Clash of the Titans, while Arthurian lore returned to the screen in John Boorman's 1981 Excalibur. Films such as Ridley Scott's 1985 Legend and Terry Gilliam's 1981-1986 trilogy of fantasy epics, Time Bandits, Brazil, and The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, explored a new artist-driven style featuring surrealist imagery and thought-provoking plots. The modern sword and sorcery boom began around the same time, with 1982's Conan the Barbarian followed by Krull and Fire and Ice in 1983, as well as a boom in fairy tale-like fantasy films such as The Never-Ending Story, 1984, Ladyhawke, 1985, The Princess Bride, 1987, and Willow, 1988. The 1980s also started a trend in mixing modern settings and action film effects with exotic fantasy-like concepts. Big Trouble in Little China, 1986, directed by John Carpenter and starring Kurt Russell, combined humor, martial arts, and classic Chinese folklore in a modern Chinatown setting. Highlander, a film about immortal Scottish swordsmen, was released the same year. Jim Henson produced two iconic fantasy films in the 80s, The Solemn The Dark Crystal and the more whimsical and lofty Labyrinth. Meanwhile, Robert Zemeckis helmed Who Framed Roger Rabbit, featuring various famous cartoon characters from animation's golden age, including Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Droopy, Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, Sylvester the Cat, Tweety Pie and Jiminy Cricket, among others. A swashbuckler film is characterized by sword-fighting and adventurous heroic characters, known as swashbucklers. While morality is typically clear-cut, heroes and villains alike often, but not always, follow a code of honor. Some swashbuckler films have romantic elements, most frequently a damsel in distress. Both real and fictional historical events often feature prominently in the plot. History. Right from the advent of cinema, the silent era was packed with swashbucklers. Citation needed. The most famous of those were the films of Douglas Fairbanks, such as The Mark of Zorro, 1920, which defined the genre. The stories came from romantic costume novels, particularly those of Alexander Dumas and Raphael Sabatini. Stirring music was also an important part of the formula. The three great cycles of swashbuckler films were the Douglas Fairbanks period from 1920 to 1929, the Errol Flynn period from 1935 to 1941, and a period in the 1950s heralded by films such as Ivanhoe, 1952, and The Master of Ballantrae, 1953, and the popularity of the British television series The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1955 to 1959. Two Richard Lester's Dumas adaptations revived the genre in the 1970s. 3. Swashbucklers. Main article, Swashbuckler. The term swashbuckler originates from boisterous fighters who carried a sword and buckler, a small shield. For swashbuckler was a put-down, used to indicate a poor swordsman who covered his lack of skill with noise, bragging, and clamour. Citation needed. Novels, and then Hollywood, altered the word's connotation to make the swashbuckler the hero of the plotline. 1. Jeffrey Richards, who describes the genre as very stylized. The hero is one who maintains a decent standard of behavior, fights for king and country, believes in truth and justice, defends the honor of lady. 5. Though these can be regarded as the values of a knight, the setting may fall anywhere between the 11th and 19th centuries. Fencing. Main article, Fencing. Fencing is an essential element of the genre, and a dramatic duel is invariably a pivotal part of the storyline. Famous fencing instructors came from the ranks of successful competitors, and included Henry Idenhove, Fred Cavins, Gene Heermans, Ralph Faulkner, and Bob Anderson. 6. Musical scores. Eric Wolfgang Korngold won the 1938 Academy Award for his score to The Adventures of Robin Hood. The 1935 Captain Blood was nominated for music, scoring. In 1940 The Seahawk was nominated for Best Original Score. Korngold was known for his late romantic compositional style and assigning each character their own leitmotif. Alfred Newman wrote the scores for The Prisoner of Zenda, 1937, the 1940 version of The Mark of Zorro, and the 1942 The Black Swan, nominated for Best Original Score. The 1940 film of The Mark of Zorro was nominated for an Academy Award for the Best Original Score. Dmitry Tiomkin scored Cyrano de Bergerac, 1950. According to film historian David Wallace, his trademarks, huge, noisy cues, propulsive adventure themes that seemingly employed every brass instrument ever invented, and melting, emotionally wrought melodies accompanying romantic scenes also became the stock-in trade of just about every film composer since. 7. Hans Zimmer scored the Pirates of the Caribbean series, reinventing the swashbuckler musical style. Television. Television followed the films. British television production in the genre was prolific, headlined by The Adventures of Robin Hood, which produced 143 episodes by 1959 and became an outstanding success both in the United Kingdom and the United States. Other popular series included The Buccaneers, 1956 to 1957, The Adventures of Sir Lancelot, 1956 to 1957, Sword of Freedom, 1958, The Adventures of William Tell, 1958, The Adventures of the Scarlet Pimpernel, ITV, 1956, ITC's The Count of Monte Cristo, ITV, 1956, and George King's The Gay Cavalier, ITV, 1957, Quentin Durward, Studio Canal, 1971, Robin of Sherwood, ITV, 1984 to 1986, and Sharp, ITV, since 1993. American television produced two series of Zorro, 1957 and 1990. Following the film The Mask of Zorro, 1998, a television series about a female swashbuckler, Queen of Swords, aired in 2008. The Spanish television series Aguila Roja, Red Eagle, aired from 2009 to 2016, is an example of the swashbuckler genre. 9. Italian and German televisions produced several series of Sondergang. The golden age of piracy was the period between the 1650s and the 1730s, when maritime piracy was a significant factor in the histories of the North Atlantic and Indian Oceans. 1-2. Histories of piracy often subdivide the golden age of piracy into three periods. 3. The buccaneering period, approximately 1650 to 1680, characterized by Anglo-French seamen based in Jamaica, Martinique, and Tortuga attacking Spanish colonies, and shipping in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific to Western Pacific. 3-4. The Pirate Round, 1690s, associated with long-distance voyages from various Caribbean and North American ports to established bases in countries like Madagascar, in order to rob Muslim and East India Company targets in the Indian Ocean and Red Sea. 3-5. The post-Spanish succession period, 1715 to 1730, when English sailors and privateers left unemployed by the end of the War of the Spanish Succession turned en masse to piracy in the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, the North American eastern seaboard, and the West African coast. 3-6. Narrower definitions of the Golden Age sometimes exclude the first or second periods, but most include at least some portion of the third. The modern conception of pirates as depicted in popular culture is derived largely, although not always accurately, from the Golden Age of piracy. Factors contributing to piracy during the Golden Age included the rise in quantities of valuable cargoes being shipped to Europe over vast ocean areas, reduced European navies in certain regions, the training and experience that many sailors had gained in European navies, particularly the British Royal Navy, and corrupt and ineffective government in European overseas colonies. Colonial powers at the time constantly fought with pirates and engaged in several notable battles and other related events. Name of the Golden Age. Origin. Amaro Pargo, a Spaniard who was one of the most famous corsairs of the Golden Age of piracy. The oldest known literary mention of a Golden Age of piracy is from 1894, when the English journalist George Powell wrote about what appears to have been the Golden Age of piracy up to the last decade of the 17th century. 7. Powell uses the phrase while reviewing Charles Leslie's A New and Exact History of Jamaica, then over 150 years old. Powell uses the phrase only once. In 1897, a more systematic use of the phrase Golden Age of piracy was introduced by historian John Fiske, who wrote, "At no other time in the world's history has the business of piracy thriven so greatly as in the 17th century and the first part of the 18th. Its golden age may be said to have extended from about 1650 to about 1720. 8. Fiske included the activities of the Barbary corsairs and East Asian pirates in this golden age, noting that as these Mussulman pirates and those of Eastern Asia were as busily at work in the 17th century as at any other time, their case does not impair my statement that the age of the buccaneers was the golden age of piracy. 9. Pirate historians of the first half of the 20th century occasionally adopted Fiske's term Golden Age, without necessarily following his beginning and ending dates for it. 10. The most expansive definition of an age of piracy was that of Patrick Pringle, who wrote in 1951 that the most flourishing era in the history of piracy began in the reign of Queen Elizabeth I and ended in the second decade of the 18th century. 11. This idea starkly contradicted Fiske, who had hotly denied that such Elizabethan figures as Drake were pirates. 12. Trend toward narrow definitions. Of recent definitions, that given by Pringle appears to have the widest range, an exception to an overall trend among historians from 1909 until the 1990s, toward narrowing the Golden Age. 13. As early as 1924, Philip Goss described piracy as being at its height from 1680 until 1730. In his highly popular 1978 book The Pirates for Time Life's The Seafarers series, Douglas Botting defined the Golden Age as lasting barely 30 years, starting at the close of the 17th century and ending in the first quarter of the 18th. 14. Botting's definition was closely followed by Frank Sherry in 1986. 15. In a 1989 academic article, Professor Marcus Rediker defined the Golden Age as lasting only from 1716 to 1726. 16. Angus Constam in 1998, reckoned the era as lasting from 1700 until 1730. 17. Perhaps the ultimate step in restricting the Golden Age was in Constam's 2005 The History of Pirates, in which he retreated from his own earlier definition, called a 1690 to 1730 definition of the Golden Age generous, and concluded that the worst of these pirate excesses was limited to an 8-year period, from 1714 until 1722, so the true Golden Age cannot even be called a golden decade. 18. Recent counter-trend toward broader meaning. David Cordingley, in his influential 1994 work Under the Black Flag, defined the Great Age of Piracy as lasting from the 1650s to around 1725, very close to Fiske's definition of the Golden Age. 19. Rediker, in 2004, described the most complex definition of the Golden Age to date. He proposes a Golden Age of piracy, which spanned the period from roughly 1650 to 1730, which he subdivides into 3 distinct generations: the buccaneers of 1650 to 1680, the Indian Ocean pirates of the 1690s, and the pirates of the years 1716 to 1726. 20. History. Main article: Piracy in the Caribbean. Piracy arose out of, and mirrored on a smaller scale, conflicts over trade and colonization among the rival European powers of the time, including the empires of Britain, Spain, the Netherlands, Portugal, and France. Most pirates in this era were of English, Welsh, Dutch, Irish, and French origin. Many pirates came from poorer urban areas, such as the ports of London, in search of a way to make money and of reprieve. 21. Piracy, therefore, offered power and quick riches. 21. Buccaneering period, c. 1650 to 1680. Main article, Buccaneer. Historians such as John Fiske mark the beginning of the golden age of piracy at around 1650, when the end of the wars of religion allowed European countries to resume the development of their colonial empires. This involved considerable seaborne trade and a general economic improvement. There was money to be made, or stolen, and much of it traveled by ship. French buccaneers had established themselves on northern Hispaniola as early as 1625-22 but lived at first mostly as hunters of pigs and cattle rather than robbers. Their transition to full-time piracy was gradual and motivated in part by Spanish efforts to wipe out both the buccaneers and the prey animals on which they depended. The buccaneers' migration from Hispaniola's mainland to the more defensible offshore island of Tortuga limited their resources and accelerated their piratical raids. According to Alexander Exquemelin, a buccaneer and historian from this period, the Tortuga buccaneer Pierre Legrand pioneered the settlers' attacks on galleons making the return voyage to Spain. The French buccaneer François-Éloi Linnaeus, Jean-David Now, was known for his extreme infamous cruelty towards Spanish prisoners on the island of Martinique. Served as a home port for French buccaneers like him, allowing the French to operate in the Caribbean against Spanish ships. The growth of buccaneering on Tortuga was augmented by the English capture of Jamaica from Spain in 1655. The early English governors of Jamaica freely granted letters of marque to Tortuga buccaneers and to their own countrymen, while the growth of Port Royal provided these raiders with a far more profitable and enjoyable place to sell their booty. In the 1660s, the new French governor of Tortuga, Bertrand d'Ogeron, similarly provided privateering commissions both to his own colonists and to English cutthroats from Port Royal. These conditions brought Caribbean buccaneering to its zenith, culminating in Henry Morgan's Panama expedition in 1670, which saw Panama City plundered, sacked, and burned the following year. The devastations brought by buccaneers finally drove the Spanish crown to authorize privateering, which they had traditionally allowed only in very limited ways, in order to hunt down piracy and contraband. That led to the emergence of the Guarda Costa, who would become especially relevant the following century. 23-24. Pirate Round, c. 1693 to 1700. Main article, Pirate Round. Henry Every is shown selling his loot in this engraving by Howard Pyle. Every's capture of the Grand Mogul ship Ganjay Isawai in 1695 stands as one of the most profitable pirate raids ever perpetrated. A number of factors caused English pirates, some of whom had been introduced to piracy during the buccaneering period, to look beyond the Caribbean for treasure as the 1690s began. The Glorious Revolution had restored the traditional enmity between Britain and France, thus ending the profitable collaboration between English Jamaica and French Tortuga. The devastation of Port Royal by an earthquake in 1692 further reduced the Caribbean's attractions by destroying the pirates' chief market for fenced plunder. 25 Caribbean colonial governors began to discard the traditional policy of no peace beyond the line, 26 under which it was understood that war would continue, and thus letters of marque would be granted, in the Caribbean regardless of peace treaties signed in Europe. Henceforth, commissions would be granted only in wartime, and their limitations would be strictly enforced. Furthermore, much of the Spanish Main had simply been exhausted. Maracaibo alone had been sacked thrice between 1667 and 1678-27, while Rio de la Hacha had been raided 5 times and Tuluá. 28. At the same time, England's less favored colonies, including Bermuda, New York, and Rhode Island, had become cash-starved by the Navigation Acts. Merchants and governors eager for coin were willing to overlook and even underwrite pirate voyages. One colonial official defended a pirate because he thought it very harsh to hang people that brings in gold to these provinces. 29. Although some of these pirates operating out of New England and the Middle Colonies targeted Spain's more remote Pacific coast colonies well into the 1690s and beyond, the Indian Ocean was a richer and more tempting target. India's economic output dwarfed Europe's during this time, especially in high-value luxury goods such as silk and calico, which made ideal pirate booty. 30 At the same time, no powerful navies plied the Indian Ocean, leaving both local shipping and the various East India Company's vessels vulnerable to attack. This set the stage for the famous piracies of Thomas II, Henry Every, Robert Culliford, and, although his guilt remains controversial, William Kidd. Post-Spanish Succession Period, c. 1715 to 1730. In 1713 and 1714, a series of peace treaties ended the War of the Spanish Succession. As a result, thousands of seamen, including European privateers who had operated in the West Indies, were relieved of military duty, at a time when cross-Atlantic colonial shipping trade was beginning to boom. In addition, European sailors who had been pushed by unemployment to work on board merchantmen, including slave ships, were often enthusiastic to abandon that profession and turn to pirating, giving pirate captains a steady pool of recruits on various coasts across the Atlantic Ocean. 31. In 1715, pirates launched a major raid on Spanish divers trying to recover gold from the sunken treasure galleon Erxita Lima near Florida. The nucleus of the pirate force was a group of English ex-privateers, all of whom were soon to be enshrined in infamy: Henry Jennings, Charles Vane, Samuel Bellamy of Witta Galley fame, Benjamin Hornigold, and Edward England. The attack was successful, but contrary to their expectations, the governor of Jamaica refused to allow Jennings and his cohorts to spend their loot on his island. With Kingston and the declining Port Royal closed to them, Hornigold, Jennings, and their comrades based themselves at Nassau, on the island of New Providence in the Bahamas. Nassau was home for these pirates and their many recruits until the arrival of Governor Woodes Rogers in 1718, which signaled the end of the Republic of Pirates. Rogers and other British governors had the authority to pardon pirates under the King's Act of Grace, while Hornigold accepted this pardon to become a privateer. Others such as Blackbeard returned to piracy following their pardon. 32. Transatlantic shipping traffic between Africa, the Caribbean, and Europe began to soar in the 18th century, a model known as the triangular trade, and became a rich target for piracy. Trade ships sailed from Europe to the African coast, trading manufactured goods and weapons for slaves. The traders then sailed to the Caribbean to sell the slaves, and returned to Europe with goods such as sugar, tobacco, and cocoa. In another triangular trade route, ships carried raw materials, preserved cod, and rum to Europe, where a portion of the cargo was sold for manufactured goods, which, along with the remainder of the original load, were then transported to the Caribbean, where they were exchanged for sugar and molasses, which, with some manufactured articles, were then borne to New England. Ships in the triangular trade often made money at each stop. 33. As part of the settlement of the War of the Spanish Succession, the British South Sea Company obtained the Asiento, a Spanish government contract to supply slaves to Spain's New World colonies, which provided British traders and smugglers more access to formerly closed Spanish markets in America. This arrangement also contributed heavily to the spread of piracy across the western Atlantic. Shipping to the colonies boomed along with the flood of skilled mariners after the war. Merchant shippers used the surplus of labor to drive wages down, cut corners to maximize profits, and create unsavory conditions aboard their vessels. Merchant sailors suffered from mortality rates as high or higher than the slaves being transported. 34. Living conditions were so poor that many sailors began to prefer a freer existence as pirates. 21. The increased volume of shipping traffic also could sustain a large body of brigands preying upon it. During this time, many of the pirates had originally been either sailors for the Royal Navy, privateersmen, or merchant seamen. 21. Most pirates had experience living on the sea, and knew how harsh the conditions could be. Sailors for the king often had very little to eat while out on the sea, and ended up sick, starving, and dying. That resulted in some sailors deserting the king and becoming pirates instead. Compared to merchant vessels, crew members on pirate ships often had as much power as the captain outside of battle. The captain only had full authority in times of battle and could be removed from this position if he showed cowardice in the face of the enemy. 35 He was also to be bold in battle, and pirates did not want things to end up the same way as on a navy ship. 36. Return of the pirate round. The loss of Nassau and harsher policing of Caribbean waters forced many pirates who were veterans of the wars of Spanish succession to travel back to Africa and re-establish the pirate round, between the years 1719 and 1730. Among these pirates, many of whom were experienced Caribbean pirates and members of the Republic of Pirates, included Edward England, John Taylor, Olivier Levasseur, and Christopher Condent, all operating from Madagascar. Taylor and Levasseur reaped the greatest prize in the history of the Golden Age of piracy, the plunder of the Portuguese East Indiaman Nossa Senhora do Cabo at Reunião in 1721, stealing diamonds and other treasures worth a total of £800,000. Condent was also a successful pirate, but England was not. He was marooned on Comoros by Taylor and Levasseur in 1721, and died not long afterward. Despite the success of Taylor and Levasseur, the pirate round quickly declined again. Levasseur himself, unlike his contemporaries, was captured and hanged in July 7, 1730 before he could retire with his riches. 37. Types of pirates. English privateers. Most privateers in the West Indies had English origins, a tradition that began with the reign of Queen Elizabeth. 3839 privateers were private persons who engaged in maritime warfare under a commission of war, known as letters of marque, which gave them the authority to raid enemy ships and exemption from piracy charges. 40-41-42 Many of them turned to piracy due to unemployment or after their letter had been redacted. 31 They became one of the most active pirates during the Golden Age of piracy, helping create the Articles of Agreement and the Republic of Pirates. 21 Other privateers, such as Woodes Rogers, Benjamin Hornigold, and Jonathan Barnett, took acts of grace and became so-called pirate hunters, using their knowledge and experience to hunt down fellow pirates. 43. French buccaneers. Buccaneers were originally French hunters and traders who mainly operated in the Caribbean, specifically Tortuga. 44 They were named after the wooden framework they used for their meat, called a buccan. 45 When the Spanish began a crackdown on their livelihood, many resorted to privateering and piracy. 46 They later gained a sizable English and Dutch population, and were employed by powerful British privateers such as Henry Morgan. 47-48 These alliances led to the creation of the Brethren of the Coast. 49 Owing to their background as hunters and frontiersmen, buccaneers became known for their marksmanship, skirmishing, and raiding, skills sought after by colonial powers. 50. Spanish guardacosta. As a response to maritime attacks on Spanish colonies and trade, Spain created a Coast Guard unit focused on hunting pirates and smugglers, known as guardacosta. 24 They were born from naval reforms formulated by the House of Bourbon and Admiral Blas de Lezo that sought to create an alliance between privateers and the Spanish Navy. 24 Utilizing fast-moving lightweight piragua, crewed by a mixture of Spanish and local natives, the guardacosta proved effective in combating piracy throughout Spain's territories in the West Indies, though were criticized for their brutality and indiscrimination. 51 They also often participated in non-government sanctioned piracy and smuggling. 52 By the 1720s, their actions spread to mainland America, specifically Florida. Female pirates. Main article, Women in Piracy. Throughout the Golden Age, there have been over 40 infamous female pirates, many of whom were also drawn to the allure and initially disguised themselves as men. 53 The most notorious Western female pirates included Anne Bonny and Mary Read, both of whom became acquainted and earned membership in John Rackham's crew. 54 They were finally captured on October 22, 1720, but their death sentences were stalled by claiming to be pregnant. Read died in jail months later, and Bonnie disappeared with no record of her execution nor childbirth. In December 1733, the burial of a woman in Jamaica named Anne Bonny was noted. 55 other examples of female pirates included Mary Critchett, a former prisoner turned pirate, who was hanged in 1729. 56. Infamous pirates. Main article, List of Pirates Golden Age of Piracy, 1690 to 1730. Blackbeard's severed head hanging from Maynard's bowsprit. Many of the best-known pirates in historical lore originate from this golden age of piracy. Samuel Bellamy, captain of the Witta galley, was lost in a storm off Cape Cod in 1717. Bellamy was popularly known as the Robin Hood of pirates and prided himself on his ideological justifications for piracy. Stede Bonnet, a rich Barbadian landowner turned pirate solely in search of adventure. Bonnet captained a 10-gun sloop named the Revenge and raided ships off the Virginia coast in 1717. He was caught and hanged in 1718. Henry Every, one of the few major pirate captains to retire with his loot without being arrested nor killed in battle. He is famous for capturing the fabulously wealthy Mogul ship Ganjay Isawai in 1695. Olivier Levasseur, aka La Buse, the only major French pirate in Nassau who was often associated with Hornigold, Bellamy, Kennedy, and Taylor. William Fly, whose execution in 1726 is used by historian Marcus Rediker to mark the end of the golden age of pirates. William Captain Kidd, executed for piracy at Execution Dock, London, in 1701, is famous for the buried treasure he supposedly left behind. Edward Lowe, born in Westminster, was active 1721 to 1724, was never captured, and was notorious for torturing his victims before killing them. He cut off ears, lips, and noses. Henry Morgan, a buccaneer who raided the Spaniards and took Panama City before burning it to the ground. He was to be executed in England, but was instead knighted and made governor of Jamaica. He died a natural death in 1688. John Rackham, famous for his partnership with female pirates Anne Bonny and Mary Red, was captured, then hanged, and gibbeted outside Port Royal, Jamaica, in 1720. Bartholomew Roberts is considered by many to be the most successful Western pirate of all time with over 400 ship captures. Edward Blackbeard Thatch, active from 1716 to 1718, is perhaps the most notorious pirate among English-speaking nations. Blackbeard's most famous ship was the Queen Anne's Revenge, named in response to the end of Queen Anne's War. 57 He was killed by one of Lieutenant Robert Maynard's crewmen in 1718. Charles Vane, a particularly violent and unrepentant pirate, who served under Henry Jennings before striking out on his own. Harsh and unpopular with his crew, Vane was marooned before being captured and hanged in 1721. Benjamin Hornigold, an English pirate who helped found the Republic of Pirates before taking a royal pardon and becoming a pirate hunter. Amaro Pargo, a prominent Spanish corsair who dominated the route between Cadiz and the Caribbean. His figure has been wrapped in a halo of romanticism and legend that have linked him to piracy, hidden treasures, and illicit romances. In the marble headstone of his tomb in San Cristobal de la Laguna, a skull with 2 crossbones is engraved that is winking its right eye. Warfare. The pirate code of the Golden Age pirates had rules that specifically mentioned weaponry. One of these stated that every pirate was responsible for cleaning and maintaining his arms. Failure to do so was a punishable offense. 58 There were also rules in regards to fighting, especially when aboard ships. When duels occurred, they were mostly done to settle disputes and fill vacancies in leadership, though they seldom result in death. 59 Honing their craft was essential to pirates. To hone their marksmanship, buccaneers practiced by shooting a doubloon in the air with a musket. 50 Other pirates, when at sea and not actively searching for prey, exercised their skill in the use of cannons. 60 Many pirates were also veterans of various European wars. Buccaneer William Dampier was a former Royal Navy sailor during the Anglo-Dutch War, while a companion named Swan was a soldier who fought during Cromwellian conquest of Ireland. 61-62. In naval engagements, pirates used a variety of tactics. The most commonly used was intimidation. Once a victim was spotted, the raising of pirate flags and a broadside salvo were used to signify the pirate's intention. 60. Many pirates also donned specific looks to appear more menacing. For example, pirate Sam Bellamy ordered his men to strip naked before an attack on a French ship. The sight was enough to force the French sailors to surrender. 60. Fast and stealthy raids were also frequently done, often with the use of smaller boats and enemy flags. Captain Josiah Burgess became famous for capturing 3 Royal Navy warships at the same time. One night, while the navymen of the Winchelsea, Trial, and Swift disembarked to get fresh water, Burgess and his pirates used canoes to surprise the idle ships. 21. The same lightning-fast attack was used during Henry Jennings's legendary raid on the 1715 Treasure Fleet salvage camp. 63. When pirates faced resistance, or forced to engage in battle, they fought by approaching the bow, and firing chain shots at the vessel's mast, disabling and immobilizing the target in the water. 64. They also used swivel guns to fire deadly ungerage, basically a mix of nails, bolts, and musket balls, at resisting enemies on the deck. 65. Other unique methods were also recorded. Joseph Bannister was famous for defeating 2 warships by going to shore, and placing cannons in areas overlooking the water, to effectively bombard the enemy vessels. 60. A naval blockade was once pulled off by Blackbeard in Charlestown. 66. Additionally, pirates like Henry Morgan and Charles Vane became known for using fire ships in engagements. 67-68. Decline. The events of the latter half of 1718, including the arrival of Governor Woodes Rogers in Nassau, 69, represented a turning point in the history of piracy in the Western Hemisphere. Without a safe base and with growing pressure from naval forces, the rovers lost their momentum. The lure of the Spanish treasures had faded, and the hunters gradually became the hunted. 70. By early 1719, the remaining pirates were on the run. Most of them headed for West Africa, seizing poorly defended slavers. 71. The deaths of 3 of the most successful pirates of the era, Bartholomew Roberts in 1722-72-73, William Fly in 1726-74, and Olivier Levasseur in 1730-37, are considered by historians to mark the end of the Golden Age, both in the Caribbean and Red Sea, respectively. Effect on popular culture. Main article: Pirates in the Arts and Popular Culture. Stories and histories from the Golden Age form the foundation of many modern depictions of pirates and piracy. A General History of the Pirates, 1724, by Captain Charles Johnson, is the source of many biographies of well-known pirates, providing an extensive account of the period. 75. Johnson gives an almost mythical status to the more colorful characters such as Blackbeard or John Rackham. In 2002, English naval historian David Cordingley wrote an introduction to Johnson's 1724 book, stating, "Captain Johnson created the modern conception of pirates." 75. Johnson's book influenced the pirate literature of Robert Louis Stevenson and J. M. Barrie. 75. The mystique of pirates is partly related to attributes of real pirates. For example, they wore earrings in hopes that the gold or silver would be used to pay for a decent burial when they died. They also wore earrings for superstitious reasons, believing the precious metals had magical healing powers. 76. While pirates are commonly depicted with eye patches, this is largely a myth originating in 19th century novels and tales of buccaneers that included payment for a lost eye. 77. Few historical pirates wore patches over their eyes, although some, like the 18th century Arab pirate Rama ibn Jabir al-Jalahima, did. 78. More recently, we see even less accurate depictions of historical era pirates. Example: Talk Like a Pirate Day, continuing the romantic image of the pirate as a treasure-burying swashbuckler in popular culture. Pirates of the Caribbean is an American fantasy supernatural swashbuckler film series produced by Jerry Bruckheimer and based on Walt Disney's theme park attraction of the same name. The film series serves as a major component of the titular media franchise. The film's plots are set primarily in the Caribbean, based on a fictionalized version of the Golden Age of piracy, c. 1650 to 1726, while also leading to the range of a mid-1700s setting. Directors of the series include Gore Verbinski, films 1-3, Rob Marshall, 4, Joachim Ronning, 5, and Espen Sandberg, 5. The series is primarily written by Ted Elliott, 1-4, and Terry Rossio, 1-5. Other writers include Stuart Beattie, 1, Jay Wolpert, 1, and Jeff Nathanson, 5. The stories follow the adventures of Captain Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp, with various other characters, including Jack's former first mate Hector Barbossa, Geoffrey Rush, and first mate Josh Amy Gibbs, Kevin McNally, over the course of the films. The film series started in 2003 with Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, which had a positive reception from audiences and film critics. It grossed $654 million worldwide. After the first film's success, Walt Disney Pictures announced that a film series was in the works. The franchise's second film, subtitled Dead Man's Chest, was released in 2006 and broke financial records worldwide the day of its premiere. Dead Man's Chest became the top-grossing movie of 2006 with almost $1.1 billion at the worldwide box office. The third film in the series, subtitled At World's End, followed in 2007, earning $960 million. Disney released a fourth film, subtitled On Stranger Tides, in 2011 in conventional 2D, digital 3D, and IMAX 3D. On Stranger Tides succeeded in also grossing more than $1 billion, becoming the second film in the franchise and only the eighth film in history to do this, at the time of release. A fifth film, subtitled Dead Men Tell No Tales, was released in 2017, earning $796 million. The franchise has grossed over $4.5 billion worldwide. It is the 17th highest grossing film series of all time, and is the first film franchise to produce two or more films that grossed over $1 billion. Films: Johnny Depp at a film premiere, Rush at a festival, McNally at a festival, Bloom at a festival, Knightley at a festival, Martin Club at the premiere of Pirates of the Caribbean 3. Johnny Depp, Geoffrey Rush, Kevin McNally, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, and Martin Club appeared in at least 4 films. Only Depp, Rush, and McNally reprised their roles in all 5 films. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, 2003. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Blacksmith Will Turner teams up with eccentric pirate Captain Jack Sparrow to save Turner's love, Elizabeth Swann, from cursed pirates led by Jack's mutinous former first mate, Hector Barbossa. Jack wants revenge against Barbossa, who left him stranded on an island before stealing his ship, the Black Pearl, along with 882 pieces of cursed Aztec gold. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, 2006. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Lord Cutler Beckett of the East India Trading Company arrests Will and Elizabeth for aiding Captain Jack Sparrow in the previous film. Beckett offers clemency if Will agrees to search for Jack's compass in a bid to find the dead man's chest and inside, the heart of villainous Davy Jones, which would give Beckett control of the seas. However, Jack wants the chest to escape from an unpaid debt with Jones, who made Jack captain of the Black Pearl for 13 years in exchange for 100 years of service aboard Jones' ship, the Flying Dutchman. Jack's debt is complicated by both Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, who follow him out to sea. Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End, 2007. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, At World's End. Lord Beckett gains power over Davy Jones and, with the help of the Flying Dutchman, he is now executing his plans to extinguish piracy forever. To stand against the East India Trading Co., Will, Elizabeth, Barbossa, and the crew of the Black Pearl set out to rescue Captain Jack Sparrow from Davy Jones' locker. As one of the 9 pirate lords, Jack is needed in order to release an ancient goddess with the power to defeat Beckett's forces. Pirates of the Caribbean, On Stranger Tides, 2011. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, On Stranger Tides. Captain Jack Sparrow is on a quest to find the fabled fountain of youth and crosses paths with a former lover, Angelica. She forces Jack aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge, a ship captained by the infamous pirate Blackbeard, Angelica's father. Both are also in search of the fountain, Angelica to save her father's soul, Blackbeard to escape a prophecy of his demise at the hands of a one-legged man. Joining the hunt is former pirate Captain Barbossa, now a privateer in King George II's navy, who is in a race against the Spanish for the Fountain of Youth. The film is based on the 1987 novel On Stranger Tides by Tim Powers. 2. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, 2017. Main article, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. A group of ghostly Spanish Navy soldiers led by Jack Sparrow's old nemesis, Captain Armando Salazar, escape from the Devil's Triangle, with the goal of killing every pirate at sea, including Sparrow. To survive, Sparrow seeks out the legendary Trident of Poseidon, a powerful artifact whose owner can control the seas and break curses. 3. The film was released in many countries as Pirates of the Caribbean, Salazar's Revenge. 4. Film US release date director, S, screenwriter, S, story by producer. The Curse of the Black Pearl July 9, 2003 Gore Verbinski Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio Ted Elliott, Jay Wolpert, Terry Rossio and Stuart Beatty Jerry Bruckheimer. Dead Man's Chest July 7, 2006 Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio. At World's End May 25, 2007. On Stranger Tides May 20, 2011 Rob Marshall. Dead Men Tell No Tales May 26, 2017 Espen Sandberg and Joaquin Ronning Jeff Nathanson Terry Rossio and Jeff Nathanson. Future. Untitled 6th film, TBA. Shortly before the release of On Stranger Tides, it was reported that Disney was planning to shoot the 5th and the 6th films back-to-back 5, although ultimately only the 5th installment was developed. By March 2017, director Joaquin Ronning stated that Dead Men Tell No Tales was only the beginning of the final adventure, confirming that it would not be the last film of the series. 6. That September, producer Jerry Bruckheimer indicated that another Pirates of the Caribbean was still in development. 7. In October of the same year, Kaya Scodelario stated that she was contractually signed to return for a 6th film. 8. Ronning was reportedly set to direct the film. 9. In 2018, a 6th film was still in the works at Disney. 10. That same year, Keira Knightley said she did not see herself returning for another installment.